The crystal champagne glass trembled in my hand as I stood in the corner of the extravagant office party, watching Marcus Hamilton hold court among his admirers. The downtown skyline of Seattle sparkled through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind him, a perfect backdrop for his performance. I'm Jessica Chen, and 6 months ago, I was the rising star of Horizon Digital Solutions investment division. Now, I was fighting to keep my career alive while this man systematically tried to destroy everything I'd built. Another successful quarter, thanks to my innovative marketing strategy, Marcus boomed, his designer suit as meticulously pressed as his rehearsed smile. My stomach churned as I watched Victoria Price, our HR director, laugh at his jokes with practiced precision. If only they knew what I had discovered in those late-night audit reports. If only they could see what I saw. I took another sip of champagne, remembering how different things had been when I first joined Horizon. Fresh from earning my MBA, I had quadrupled our real estate investment portfolio in just 2 years. That was before Marcus transferred from the New York office, before he started taking credit for my work, before he began his campaign to edge me out. "Jess, you okay?" Olivia Martinez appeared at my side, her concerned eyes scanning my face. My friend and fellow manager had watched Marcus's behavior with growing alarm over the past months. "You don't have to stay, you know. No one would blame you for leaving early." "I can't," I whispered, gripping my glass tighter. "The board members are here. If I leave now, it'll look like you're exactly the weak, worthless diversity Hire Marcus keeps claiming you are," Olivia finished, her voice hard with anger. "God, I still can't believe he said that in the quarterly review." The memory of that meeting stung fresh. Marcus standing over me in the conference room, his voice dripping with contempt as he dismissed my entire presentation. "We all know why you're really here, Jessica, and it's not because of your capabilities." The way Victoria had simply sat there taking notes but saying nothing hurt almost as much as the words themselves. I smoothed down my black dress, a designer piece that had cost a month's salary. Every detail of my appearance had to be perfect tonight. I couldn't give them any ammunition, couldn't show a single crack in my armor. But Marcus was already approaching, his predatory smile widening as he spotted me. "Jessica, just the person I wanted to see." His voice carried across the room, drawing attention. "I was just telling the board about the Robinson account. You know, the one you nearly lost us last month? Thank goodness my team was there to clean up the mess." My face burned. The Robinson account had been my biggest success to date. I had restructured their entire portfolio, saving them millions. But Marcus had somehow gotten his name added to the final presentation, and now... "Actually," I started, but he spoke over me. "You really should learn to stay in your lane," he continued, loud enough for nearby groups to hear. "Some people just aren't cut out for the big leagues. No shame in that, is there, Victoria?" Victoria Price smiled thinly, adjusting her pearls. "We all have to recognize our limitations." The room seemed to spin. 6 years of education, countless late nights, sacrificed weekends, perfect performance reviews, all being erased by this man's calculated cruelty. I felt Olivia tense beside me, ready to jump to my defense, but I touched her arm. "Not yet. Not here." Because what Marcus didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had spent the last 3 months investigating. Late at night, after everyone had left, I had dug through years of records with Andre from IT's help. The mysterious shell company that owned our building, the questionable tax arrangements, the hidden ownership stakes. I had found it all. "You know what, Marcus?" I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "You're absolutely right. Some people really should learn to stay in their lane, especially when they don't know who they're really dealing with." He frowned, caught off guard by my calm response. "Is that a threat, Jessica?" I smiled, taking a deliberate sip of champagne. Not at all. Just an observation about limitations. Later that night, as I rode the elevator down to the parking garage, my phone buzzed with a text from Sam Patel, my lawyer friend. Documents confirmed. Everything's ready when you are. I caught my reflection in the elevator's mirrored walls. The woman staring back at me wasn't the same person who had started at Horizon 3 years ago. She was stronger now, wiser, and very, very angry. Marcus Hamilton thought he had me cornered, thought he could bully me into quitting like all the other women before me, but he had no idea what was coming. If you want to know how I took down one of Seattle's most notorious corporate bullies and revealed the shocking truth about who really owned the building, make sure to subscribe. The next part of this story will show exactly how I discovered the secret that would change everything, and why Marcus Hamilton's biggest mistake wasn't underestimating me, but not knowing who he was really messing with. The morning after the office party, I arrived at Horizon Digital Solutions an hour early, before the usual crowd filtered in. The cleaning crew was still vacuuming between cubicles as I made my way to my office, or what used to be my office. Last week, Marcus had me relocated to a cramped workspace near the elevator, claiming my former space was needed for his expanding team. I settled at my desk, pulling up the quarterly reports I'd been working on. The sun was barely peeking between the downtown skyscrapers when Maya Thompson, our newest analyst, rushed in looking flustered. "Jessica, I'm so sorry to bother you this early, but I need your help. The numbers for the Westbrook proposal. Something's not adding up." I gestured for her to sit. Maya was one of the few who still came to me for guidance, despite Marcus's persistent efforts to undermine my authority. As she spread her documents across my desk, Victoria Price walked past, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. She paused, watching us with barely concealed disapproval. "Maya, dear," Victoria called out, her voice honey-sweet but eyes cold. "The marketing team meeting starts in 10 minutes. Marcus specifically requested your presence." Maya glanced at me apologetically, gathering her papers. "I'll figure it out myself, Jessica. Thanks anyway." She hurried away, leaving me alone with Victoria's scrutiny. "You know, Jessica," Victoria leaned against my desk, adjusting her expensive blazer. "Things would be so much easier if you just adapt. Marcus has a very specific vision for the department's future." "A vision that doesn't include me, apparently," I replied, keeping my voice neutral as I typed. "Despite my track record." Victoria sighed dramatically. "Your past performance isn't the issue. It's your attitude. Not everyone appreciates your aggressive approach to leadership." I thought about the hidden folder on my personal laptop, filled with screenshots and documents that Andre had helped me uncover. "Interesting perspective, Victoria. Tell me, does that same criticism apply to Marcus's leadership style?" Her smile tightened. "Marcus knows how to play the game. You might want to learn from him." As if summoned, Marcus's voice boomed from the elevator bank. He was leading Richard Walsh, our CFO, on what appeared to be an office tour. "As you can see, Richard, we've optimized the space utilization, moved some unnecessary elements to more appropriate locations." They stopped at my desk, Marcus's smirk barely concealed. "Ah, Jessica, much better setup for your current responsibilities, wouldn't you say? Sometimes a step down is exactly what people need." I met his gaze steadily. "Fascinating building. Management strategy, Marcus. You seem very invested in the property logistics." Something flickered in his eyes. Uncertainty? Before he laughed it off. "Well, real estate optimization is part of my expanded role now. Speaking of which, Richard and I need to discuss the upcoming board presentation, the one I'll be leading." My presentation? The one I'd spent 3 months preparing. I watched them walk away, Victoria trailing behind like an eager shadow. Once they were gone, I pulled out my phone and texted Olivia. "Lunch today. Need to show you something." We met at a small cafe 2 blocks away, well out of sight of Horizon's windows. Olivia listened intently as I pulled out my laptop, showing her what Andre and I had discovered during our late-night investigation sessions. Look at this. I pointed to a complex web of shell companies and property documents. The building ownership traces back to a private trust, but there's something odd about the timing of the transfers. And these tax documents, they don't match the public records. Olivia leaned closer, her legal background kicking in. This is irregular, but how does it connect to Marcus? I pulled up another document. 3 years ago, right before Marcus transferred from New York, there was a major restructuring of the building's ownership. The timing aligns perfectly with some very questionable financial movements in the company's real estate holdings. Have you shown this to Sam? Olivia asked, referring to my lawyer friend. She's reviewing everything now, but there's more. I lowered my voice. Remember Dr. Foster, the retired founder? I have a meeting with him tomorrow. He reached out after hearing about what happened at the quarterly review. Olivia's eyes widened. The company founder? Jess, this is big, but also dangerous. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. If Marcus finds out. He won't, I assured her, though my hands shook slightly as I closed my laptop. Not until everything's in place. Back at the office, I found Maya waiting by my desk. She glanced around nervously before speaking. The marketing team meeting. Marcus said some things about you. He's planning to present your entire investment strategy as his own at the board meeting next week. I touched her arm gently. Thank you for telling me, Maya. But be careful. I don't want you getting caught in the crossfire. It's not right, she whispered. The way they're treating you. Everyone sees it, but they're all too scared to say anything. I watched Marcus through the glass walls of his office. My former office, as he gestured expansively to Richard Walsh. Sometimes, I said quietly, people mistake kindness for weakness. And sometimes that's exactly what you need them to think. That evening, as I prepared to leave, Victoria stopped by my desk one last time. The charity gala is next Friday, she said, examining her manicure. I assume you'll be attending? Marcus is receiving an award for his community leadership. Of course he was. I smiled, thinking of my upcoming meeting with Dr. Foster. I wouldn't miss it for the world, Victoria. In fact, I think it's going to be an unforgettable evening. She narrowed her eyes, clearly trying to detect any sarcasm. Just try to dress appropriately this time. We have standards to maintain. As I rode the elevator down to the parking garage, I received a text from Sam. Documents verified, meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. to discuss strategy. I caught my reflection in the elevator's polished doors. Victoria was right about one thing. It was all about standards. And it was time to show them exactly what mine were. Tomorrow's meeting with Dr. Foster would change everything. Marcus thought he had won, thought he had successfully pushed me into the corner with his power plays and petty humiliations. But he had no idea that every insult, every sideways comment, every strategic dismissal was building toward something much bigger than his imagined victory. Because while Marcus was busy playing office politics, I had been following the money. And what I'd found would bring his entire carefully constructed world crashing down. Dr. Benjamin Foster's private office in the historic district felt worlds away from Horizon's sleek corporate tower. Aged leather chairs, wall-to-wall bookshelves, and the soft ticking of an antique clock created an atmosphere of old-world dignity that instantly put me at ease. The company's retired founder sat across from me, his weathered hands folded on the mahogany desk as he examined the documents I'd brought. This is troubling, Ms. Chen, he said finally, removing his reading glasses. Very troubling indeed. I always suspected Marcus Hamilton's sudden transfer from New York wasn't entirely above board, but this... He tapped the financial records. This suggests a level of manipulation I hadn't imagined. I leaned forward. The shell companies, the property transfers, it all points to something bigger than just corporate politics. But I'm missing a crucial piece. Dr. Foster stood, walking to a filing cabinet in the corner. Perhaps this will help. He retrieved a thick folder, its edges worn with age. When I stepped down 5 years ago, I maintained certain oversight measures. Call it the cautious nature of a founder who built his company from nothing. As he spread out the contents, my pulse quickened. Property deeds, trust documents, original building contracts, everything I needed to connect the final dots. Dr. Foster, this is insurance, he finished, smiling slightly, against exactly the kind of corporate maneuvering you've uncovered. Our meeting ran long, and by the time I returned to the office, the afternoon board presentation was already underway. I slipped into the back of the conference room just as Marcus was reaching his grand finale. And that's why, he proclaimed, standing at the head of the table, I recommend a complete restructuring of our investment strategy. The current approach implemented by previous team members lacks the vision and ambition Horizon needs to move forward. Victoria nodded enthusiastically from her seat, while Richard Walsh appeared suitably impressed. I watched the board members exchange glances, their expressions thoughtful. They were buying it, every word. Marcus clicked to the next slide. My research, my strategy, now rebranded with his name. This new direction represents months of my personal analysis. Excuse me, I spoke up, my voice clear and steady. But I believe there's been a mistake. The room fell silent. Marcus's smile froze. Jessica, this is a closed board meeting. You weren't invited. I stepped forward, pulling Dr. Foster's folder from my bag. Oh, I think you'll want me to stay for this part, especially given what I've discovered about the building's ownership structure. Marcus's face flushed. This isn't the time or place. It's exactly the time, I cut in, addressing the board directly. Because while Mr. Hamilton has been busy stealing other people's work, I've been investigating why our real estate holdings suddenly shifted 3 years ago, right when he arrived from New York. Victoria stood up, smoothing her skirt nervously. This is highly inappropriate. Mr. Walsh, perhaps we should... Sit down, Victoria, Richard Walsh said quietly, his eyes fixed on the documents I was now distributing. I believe we should... Hear Ms. Chen out. I laid out the evidence methodically, watching Marcus's composure crack with each revelation. The shell companies, the hidden transfers, the suspicious timing of his promotion and transfer. But the most interesting part, I concluded, is how Mr. Hamilton managed to orchestrate his position here. Would you like to explain the coincidence of your wife's company acquiring a controlling interest in this building through 3 separate shell corporations just weeks before you transferred to Seattle? Marcus lunged forward, trying to grab the documents. This is slander. You have no proof. Actually, a voice came from the doorway. She does. Dr. Benjamin Foster walked in, followed by Sam Patel, my lawyer friend. The board members straightened in their chairs, several gasping in recognition of the company's legendary founder. Dr. Foster, Richard Walsh stood quickly. We had no idea you were involved in this matter. Until recently, I wasn't, Dr. Foster replied, his voice grave. But Ms. Chen brought some disturbing patterns to my attention. Patterns that suggest a coordinated effort to seize control of company assets through questionable means. Marcus looked desperately around the room, finding no allies. Even Victoria had shrunk back in her chair. This is ridiculous. You can't... Possibly. Your wife's company doesn't own this building, Mr. Hamilton, I said clearly. That was just another shell game. The true ownership never changed hands. Dr. Foster still controls the property trust, and he's been watching your machinations. Very carefully. The silence in the room was deafening. I could hear Marcus's rapid breathing, see the sweat beading on his forehead. All his careful plans, all his power plays, crumbling in real time. Furthermore, Sam stepped forward, opening her briefcase. We have documentation of systematic discrimination and workplace harassment, specifically targeting female employees who threatened Mr. Hamilton's artificially constructed position. Maya appeared in the doorway, followed by 3 other women who had left the company in the past year. Their presence spoke volumes. I move for an immediate suspension pending investigation, Richard Walsh announced, looking around the boardroom. All in favor? The hands went up one by one. Marcus watched his empire collapse, his face ashen. You can't do this. You don't understand what's at stake. Oh, I understand perfectly, I replied, gathering my documents. I understand what it's like to have everything you've worked for threatened by someone who values power over truth. The difference is, I fought back with facts, not fear. Victoria tried to follow Marcus as security arrived to escort him out, but Richard Walsh stopped her. Ms. Price, I believe we'll need to discuss your role in this situation as well. As the boardroom cleared, Dr. Foster touched my arm. Well done, Ms. Chen. Though I suspect this is just the beginning of a larger cleanup operation. I watched. Marcus's retreating figure through the glass walls, thinking of all the careers he had damaged, all the lives he had impacted with his ruthless ambition. Sometimes, I said quietly, the most worthless thing you can do is stay silent in the face of wrongdoing? Olivia appeared at my side, grinning. So, shall we start moving your things back to your proper office? I looked around the boardroom, at the scattered papers and abandoned presentations. Marcus's last grand performance ended not with a bang, but with the quiet power of truth. Actually, I smiled, I think it's time we reviewed the entire office layout. Something tells me we're going to need space for all the talented people who were pushed aside to make room for false kings. The sun was setting over Seattle's skyline, painting the windows of our building, Dr. Foster's building, in shades of gold. Tomorrow would bring investigations, reorganizations, and the long process of rebuilding what Marcus had tried to destroy. But for now, I savored the simple pleasure of knowing that sometimes the most powerful weapon against corruption isn't force, but simply having the courage to stand up and speak the truth. The morning after Marcus's removal from Horizon Digital Solutions dawned with an eerie calm. The usual bustling energy of the office was replaced by hushed conversations and furtive glances. I arrived early, the weight of responsibility settling on my shoulders as I walked through the quiet lobby. The security guard nodded respectfully, a small change that spoke volumes about the shifting power dynamics. My phone buzzed with messages from reporters seeking comments about yesterday's events. Someone had leaked the story to the Seattle Business Journal. I silenced the notifications, knowing the real work was just beginning. Andre from IT met me at my temporary desk, his expression serious. You need to see this, he said, opening his laptop. I've been monitoring the server activity since yesterday afternoon. Someone's been trying to delete files, lots of them. I leaned closer, watching as he pulled up access logs. Victoria? He nodded. Her credentials, accessing financial records dating back 3 years. She's been at it all night. Can you recover everything? A slight smile crossed his face. Already done. I set up backup protocols months ago when you first asked me to look into the irregular activity. But that's not all. He clicked through to another screen. Look at these email exchanges between Victoria and Marcus's wife's company. They go back years before he transferred here. The pieces clicked into place. She was their inside person. She helped set everything up before Marcus even arrived. Exactly. And now she's trying to cover her tracks. I straightened up, my mind racing. Make copies of everything. Send them to Sam and Dr. Foster. Then lock down all administrative access. Already done, Andre replied. But you should know. Richard Walsh called an emergency meeting for 9 a.m., full staff. I checked my watch, 7:45 a.m. Time to prepare then. In my old office, Marcus's office until yesterday, I found Olivia already waiting. "The vultures are circling," she said, gesturing to her phone. "3 different department heads have already called, trying to figure out where they stand." "Let them wonder," I replied, settling behind the desk. It felt strange being back here, like stepping into a past life. "We need to focus on damage control and rebuilding." Maya knocked softly before entering, carrying a stack of files. "These were in Victoria's office," she said. "Personnel files. On every female employee who's left in the past 3 years. They're extensively annotated." I opened the top file, feeling sick as I read Victoria's neat handwriting. "Potential troublemaker. Too ambitious. Needs to be managed out." Page after page of calculated character assassination. "Get these to Sam," I told Maya. "They'll be important for the investigation." The office gradually filled with nervous energy as 9 o'clock approached. I could see Victoria through the glass walls, pacing in her office, making frantic phone calls. She had changed clothes since yesterday, but her perfectly maintained facade showed cracks, smudged mascara, slightly crooked lipstick. At 8:55, Richard Walsh arrived with 2 members of the board and Dr. Foster. They headed straight for the main conference room without acknowledging Victoria's attempts to catch their attention. "Showtime," Olivia murmured. The conference room filled quickly. I took my seat near Dr. Foster, noting how people automatically left empty chairs between themselves and Victoria. The power shift was already tangible. Richard Walsh stood, commanding immediate silence. "As you're all aware, yesterday revealed serious misconduct at the highest levels of our organization. The board has spent the night in emergency sessions, and we've made some decisions." He gestured to Dr. Foster, who stood with remarkable dignity for a man his age. "When I founded this company 30 years ago," he began, "I built it on principles of innovation, integrity, and equal opportunity for all talented individuals. Recent events have shown how far we've strayed from those values." Victoria shifted uncomfortably in her seat as Dr. Foster continued. "Effective immediately, we're implementing a complete restructuring of senior management. Ms. Chen will be taking over as Director of Investment Strategy with full autonomy to rebuild her department." My heart pounded as I felt all eyes turn to me. Victoria's face had gone pale. "Furthermore," Richard Walsh took over, "we're launching a comprehensive investigation into all personnel decisions made in the past 3 years. Ms. Price, I believe you have some explaining to do about certain documentation we've discovered." Victoria stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly. "This is ridiculous. Everything I did was standard HR procedure. You can't possibly—" "Standard procedure?" Maya's voice rang out, surprising everyone. She stood, hands shaking but voice steady. "Was it standard procedure when you told me I'd never advance unless I played by Marcus's rules? When you helped him systematically undermine every woman who showed too much potential?" Other voices joined in, years of suppressed grievances finally finding release. Victoria looked around wildly, finding no allies in the sea of faces. "Ms. Price," Richard Walsh's voice cut through the chaos, "security will escort you to clear out your office. The board will expect your full cooperation with the investigation." As Victoria was let out, Dr. Foster turned to address the room. "Change isn't always comfortable, but it's often necessary. Ms. Chen has shown us that courage and integrity still matter in corporate America. Now, we begin the work of rebuilding." The meeting continued with announcements of interim appointments and investigation procedures, but my mind was already racing ahead to the challenges we'd face. Marcus and Victoria were gone, but their influence had run deep. Later that afternoon, alone in my reclaimed office, I found a small package on my desk. Inside was an old photograph showing a much younger Dr. Foster standing in front of an empty lot, the future site of our building. A note accompanied it. Sometimes we need to be reminded of our foundations to build a better future. Thank you for helping me protect mine. BF. I placed the photo on my desk, a reminder of what we were fighting to restore. My phone buzzed with a text from Sam. Injunction granted. Marcus and Victoria can't access any company systems or contact employees. Also, you might want to see tomorrow's business section. Attached was an advance copy of a Seattle Business Journal article. Corporate whistleblower exposes real estate fraud scheme at major tech firm. The subtitle read, Female Executive's Investigation Reveals Pattern of Discrimination and Financial Misconduct. I smiled, remembering Marcus's condescending words about staying in my lane. How fitting that his downfall would come not from his fraudulent real estate schemes, but from underestimating the very people he'd tried to suppress. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Maya stood there with several other women from the department, including some I barely knew. "We wanted to thank you," she said. "And, well, we have some ideas for rebuilding the team. If you're willing to listen." I gestured for them to come in, clearing space on my desk. I'm always willing to listen. That's something the old management never understood. Real power comes from lifting others up, not pushing them down. As we began to plan, I caught our reflection in the window, a group of talented women finally free to reach their potential. Outside, Seattle's skyline stretched toward the clouds, a reminder that sometimes the tallest buildings stand on foundations of truth and justice, not deception and power plays. The ripples from Marcus and Victoria's departure spread through Horizon Digital Solutions like waves in a disturbed pond. By week's end, the 10th floor had transformed. Gone was the suffocating atmosphere of fear and favoritism, replaced by something more tentative: hope. I sat in my restored office, reviewing the stack of emails from former employees reaching out after reading the Seattle Business Journal article. Each message told a similar story. Talented women pushed out, careers derailed, confidence shattered. But now they wanted to talk. "Another one just came in," Olivia said, entering with her tablet. Sarah Winters. She was head of software development before Marcus arrived. Remember how they said she left for personal reasons? I nodded, recalling the abrupt departure that had puzzled everyone. Let me guess. She was getting too successful? Bingo. She's willing to testify about how Marcus and Victoria systematically undermined her authority until she felt forced to resign. But that's not all. Olivia's eyes gleamed. She went to Golden State Tech afterward. She's their chief technology officer now. Perfect timing, I said, pulling up my calendar. The board meets next week to discuss new partnerships. Golden State has exactly the technology infrastructure we need. A knock at my door interrupted us. Zara Ahmed from Building Management stood there looking nervous. "Ms. Chen, there's something you should know. We've been reviewing the maintenance records, and we found some irregularities during Mr. Hamilton's tenure." "What kind of irregularities?" Zara placed a thick folder on my desk. Approved payments for repairs that never happened. Contracts with vastly inflated costs, all going to companies we've never heard of. And this. She pointed to a series of dates. Security camera footage from these nights is missing. All nights when Mr. Hamilton accessed the building after hours. I exchanged glances with Olivia. "Send everything to Sam, and Zara, thank you for coming forward." After she left, Olivia whistled softly. "How deep does this rabbit hole go?" "Deep enough to bury Marcus's entire career," Andre said, appearing in the doorway with his laptop. "I've been tracing those shell companies he used. They all lead back to a private equity firm in New York, Redwood Partners." My heart skipped. That's where Marcus worked before Horizon. Exactly. And guess who just opened a Seattle office? Andre turned his laptop, showing a business news article. Redwood Partners, expanding their West Coast presence, led by none other than Marcus's wife, Eleanor Hamilton. I leaned back, pieces clicking into place. It wasn't just about controlling this building. They were positioning for a larger play, using Horizon as a stepping stone to establish their presence here. And now their foundation is crumbling, Olivia added with satisfaction. My phone buzzed, Dr. Foster requesting a meeting. In his private office an hour later, the gravity of our situation became clear. Redwood Partners isn't just expanding, he said, spreading out documents across his antique desk. They're launching a hostile takeover attempt. Marcus was their inside man, weakening our structure from within. With him gone, they're moving to Plan B. I studied the financial projections. They're undervaluing our assets, if they succeed. Hundreds of jobs at risk, Dr. Foster finished. The company I built carved up and sold for parts. Not if we can help it, said a voice from the door. Sam Patel entered, followed by Sarah Winters herself. Sorry we're late. Traffic from the airport was brutal. Sarah looked exactly as I remembered. Brilliant, determined, and now carrying herself with the confidence of someone who had overcome adversity and emerged stronger. I hear you need a technology partnership, she said, setting her briefcase down. And I need to settle an old score. The next few hours were a blur of strategy sessions. Sarah's insights into Marcus's tactics proved invaluable. She had witnessed his rise at Redwood Partners before he set his sights on Horizon. He always works the same way, she explained, sketching out patterns on a whiteboard. Identify successful women in key positions, isolate them, undermine their authority, then push them out. Replace them with loyal followers. Once the structure's weakened, the takeover begins. But this time we caught him, I said. This time he didn't expect anyone to fight back, Sarah corrected. He certainly never expected his targets to unite against him. Maya knocked and entered, carrying fresh coffee for everyone. The employee forums are buzzing, she reported. People are sharing stories, connecting patterns. That culture of fear is breaking down. Perfect timing, Sam said, pulling out her phone. Because tomorrow's paper is running another story. Not just about Horizon, about every company where Marcus and Redwood Partners have pulled this scheme. Dr. Foster smiled for the first time that day. The mighty fall hardest when their victims stand together. As if on cue, my phone lit, up with a message from an unknown number. Eleanor Hamilton wanted to meet. It's a trap, Olivia said immediately. Of course it is, I agreed. But it's also an opportunity. We chose neutral ground, a busy cafe in Pike Place Market. Eleanor. Hamilton proved to be Marcus's perfect match. Elegantly ruthless, carefully coiffed, and radiating cold authority. This vendetta of yours needs to end, she said without preamble. You've made your point. Name your price. I sipped my coffee slowly. Interesting choice of words. Vendetta implies revenge. This is about justice. Justice? She laughed, brittlely. You're destroying years of careful planning over some hurt feelings about office politics. No, I said, pushing Sarah's research across the table. I'm exposing a systematic campaign of discrimination and fraud, one that spans multiple companies and years of calculated abuse of power. Eleanor's perfectly manicured fingers tightened around her untouched cup. You can't prove any of this. Actually, we can. Every shell company, every fraudulent contract, every woman whose career your husband destroyed, it's all documented. The only question is, how far are you willing to fall with him? Is that a threat, an observation, and an offer? She leaned forward. I'm listening. Withdraw the takeover bid. Cut ties with Marcus. Redwood Partners can save face and survive. Fight us. And every reporter in the country will be diving into your business practices. You're bluffing. I stood gathering my things. Check tomorrow's business section. Then ask yourself, do you want to be known as the woman who enabled Marcus's schemes, or the one who helped expose corporate discrimination? Back at the office, I found a surprise waiting. The women Marcus had pushed out over the years, not just from Horizon, but from companies across his career, had organized. They called themselves the Glass Ceiling Breakers, and they were ready to testify. "Strength in numbers," Sarah said, showing me their testimonies. "He never thought we'd find each other, talk to each other, support each other." I looked around, my office at the determined faces of women who had refused to stay silent. At Maya, already growing into her newfound confidence. At Olivia, our steady rock through every storm. At Sam, wielding law like a sword for justice. The sun was setting over Seattle's skyline, painting our building in shades of possibility. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight we had something Marcus could never understand: the unshakable power of truth spoken in unity. My phone buzzed one last time. Eleanor Hamilton's response. "We need to talk, all of us." The game wasn't over, but the rules had changed. And this time, we were writing them. The downtown Seattle law firm's conference room felt like neutral territory in an ongoing war. Eleanor Hamilton sat at one end of the polished mahogany table, flanked by her legal team. I occupied the other end with Sam Patel, Sarah Winters, and Dr. Foster beside me. The morning sun filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the tense faces gathered for this decisive meeting. "Let's be clear about what's at stake," Eleanor began, her voice carrying the practiced authority of someone used to commanding rooms. "Your accusations threaten not just reputations, but the stability of multiple corporations. Have you considered the collateral damage?" "Interesting choice of words," Sam responded, spreading out documents from her briefcase. "Let's talk about the collateral damage from your husband's systematic discrimination campaign. 23 women's careers derailed at Redwood Partners alone. 35 at companies you acquired. 17 at Horizon." Eleanor's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. Corporate restructuring always has casualties. "Casualties?" Sarah Winters leaned forward. "Is that what you called it when Marcus orchestrated my removal? When he dismantled my entire department because I wouldn't play by his rules?" "That was a business decision." "That was discrimination," I corrected. "And fraud, when you factor in the real estate manipulation schemes." A knock at the door interrupted us. Andre entered, laptop in hand. "Sorry I'm late, but you'll want to see this." He connected to the room's display screen, pulling up financial records. "We've completed the audit of all property transactions involving Redwood Partners and its subsidiaries over the past 5 years." Eleanor's lawyer started to object, but she raised a hand to silence him. Her eyes were fixed on the screen, watching as Andre revealed the intricate web of financial misconduct that had built her husband's empire. "Shell companies within shell companies," Andre explained, "each layer hiding irregular transactions, inflated contracts, and systematic fraud, all connecting back to one source." He highlighted a name on the screen: Marcus Hamilton's private holding company. "This is circumstantial," Eleanor's lawyer interjected. "You can't prove—" "Actually, we can," Dr. Foster spoke for the first time. "You see, when I stepped down as CEO, I didn't entirely retire. I maintained oversight of certain key aspects of Horizon's operations, including building security protocols that Marcus never knew about." He nodded to Andre, who pulled up a series of security footage clips. They showed Marcus in late-night meetings, exchanging documents, making calls, all carefully documented and time-stamped. "Everything," Dr. Foster continued, "from his initial manipulation of property records to his coordinated campaign against female executives, was captured and archived. We just needed someone brave enough to connect the dots." Eleanor's composure cracked slightly. "What do you want?" "Justice," I replied simply, starting with a complete reversal of every fraudulent transaction. Reinstatement and compensation for every woman whose career was damaged. and your public acknowledgement of these practices. You're asking me to destroy everything we've built. No, Sarah countered. We're offering you a chance to rebuild it legitimately. To be known as the woman who exposed corporate discrimination instead of the one who enabled it. A new voice joined the conversation. Take the deal, Eleanor. Richard Walsh entered the room, followed by 2 members of Horizon's board. Because the alternative is a very public, very detailed investigation into every aspect of Redwood Partners. Operations. Eleanor looked around the room, perhaps truly seeing for the first time the force assembled against her. Not just individuals, but a movement. A reckoning. I'll need time to consider options, she said finally. You have 24 hours, Sam replied. After that, we go public with everything. As the meeting dispersed, Maya was waiting outside with more news. The Glass Ceiling Breakers network has grown. Women from 3 other companies have come forward with similar stories about Marcus's tactics. Perfect timing, Sam smiled. Because tomorrow, either Eleanor Hamilton becomes our strongest ally or our most public example. Back at Horizon, the office was buzzing with anticipation. Word had spread about the meeting, about the possibility of real change. I found Olivia in my office, reviewing personnel files. We've identified 15 more cases, she reported. Women who were pushed out of positions at Horizon subsidiaries, all following Marcus's exact pattern. Add them to the compensation list, I instructed. When this is over, everyone gets made whole. Speaking of whole, Olivia gestured to my computer. You might want to check your email. The Seattle Times is running a feature on corporate discrimination. They want your perspective as a whistleblower. I thought about Eleanor Hamilton's words about collateral damage, about all the lives affected by one man's ruthless ambition and the system that enabled him. Schedule the interview, I decided. It's time more women knew they're not alone in these battles. That evening, as I prepared to leave, I found an unexpected visitor in the lobby, Victoria Price, looking considerably less polished than in her HR director days. Come to threaten more careers? I asked. Come to make a deal, she replied. I have documentation, years of it. Every directive Marcus gave about targeting successful women. Every fraudulent performance review, every manufactured complaint. I studied her carefully. Why come forward now? Because Eleanor Hamilton just fired her entire HR department. Because I finally realized I helped build a machine that would eventually destroy me too. She held out a USB drive. Consider it a down payment on redemption. I took the drive. Redemption comes from actions, not transactions. If you want to make things right, testify. Help us ensure this never happens again. She nodded slowly. I will, and Jessica, I'm sorry for everything. As she left, my phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor Hamilton. Meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. I've made my decision. I looked up at our building, remembering Marcus's smug confidence when he'd called me worthless at that office party. He never understood that true worth isn't measured in power plays and property deeds, but in the courage to stand up for what's right. Tomorrow would bring either a powerful ally or a very public battle. Either way, we were ready. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't in tearing something down, but in showing others how to build something better in its place. Dr. Foster's words from earlier echoed in my mind. The strongest foundations are built on truth. Tomorrow, we would test that foundation, one way or another. Rain pelted against the windows of Horizon Digital Solutions as the clock ticked toward 9. I stood in the executive conference room, watching Seattle's skyline emerge from the morning mist. Behind me, the team we'd assembled waited in focused silence. Sam Patel reviewed legal documents one final time. Sarah Winters studied financial projections on her tablet. Dr. Foster sat quietly, his weathered hands folded on the table. Security called. Olivia entered, closing the door softly. Eleanor Hamilton just arrived. She's brought reinforcements. How many? I asked, turning. From the window. 3 lawyers, 2 financial advisors, and… Olivia hesitated. Marcus? The room tensed. His presence wasn't part of the plan. I caught Sam's eye and she nodded slightly. We'd prepared for contingencies. Good, I said, surprising everyone. Let them come. It's time they saw what real power looks like. Maya slipped in with a stack of folders, testimonies from the Glass Ceiling Breakers Network, now hundreds strong. Each story documented, verified, and damning. She distributed them just as the door opened again. Eleanor Hamilton entered first, immaculate in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Marcus followed, his usual swagger diminished, but not gone. The arrogance in his eyes flickered when he saw Sarah Winters, then died completely when he noticed Victoria Price sitting in the corner. Victoria, he started, but Eleanor silenced him with a sharp gesture. We're here to discuss terms, Eleanor announced, her legal team arranging themselves around her like a protective barrier. Though I must say, bringing my husband into this seems unnecessarily provocative. On the contrary, I replied, remaining standing. Your husband's presence is essential. After all, he should witness firsthand how his empire falls. Marcus surged forward. You vindictive little… Mr. Hamilton, Dr. Foster's voice cracked like a whip. I suggest you remember where you are and whose building you're standing in. The room fell silent. Eleanor's lawyers exchanged glances. This wasn't the easy settlement meeting they'd expected. Let's begin, Sam said, projecting a document onto the screen. We have a comprehensive proposal for restructuring Redwood Partners, leadership and compensating affected employees. Compensation? One of Eleanor's lawyers scoffed. Based on what evidence? Victoria Price stood, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. Based on my testimony. And these. She placed her own stack of documents on the table. Every directive, every email, every manufactured performance review used to systematically eliminate successful women from positions of power. All preserved in HR records. Marcus's face went from red to white. You kept records? Of course she did, Sarah interjected. Just like I did. Just like all of us did. We learned early that documentation was our only defense against men, like you. Eleanor's financial advisors were frantically reviewing the numbers on their tablets. One leaned over to whisper in her ear. Her expression hardened. The financial implications of these demands are unreasonable, she declared. You're asking us to essentially dismantle our entire corporate structure. No, I corrected. We're giving you a chance to rebuild it ethically, starting with this. I nodded to Andre, who had been quietly working on his laptop. The screen changed, showing a complex web of property holdings and shell companies. Your real estate portfolio, he explained, built through systematic fraud and manipulation, all traceable back to Marcus's initial schemes. You can't prove… Marcus began. Actually, a new voice interrupted. Richard Walsh entered with 2 FBI agents. They can, and they have. The atmosphere in the room shifted dramatically. Eleanor's lawyers huddled together, whispered conversations becoming increasingly heated. What's it going to be, Eleanor? I asked quietly. Continue defending a corrupt system, or help us change it? She looked at her husband, then at the FBI agents, then at the documents spreading across the table like a flood of truth. If I cooperate, she said carefully, what guarantees do I have? Full immunity, Sam replied. Public recognition as a whistleblower, and a chance to be part of the solution instead of the problem. Marcus lunged for his wife's arm. Eleanor, you can't… Sit down, Marcus, she snapped. You've done enough damage. She turned to her legal team. Review the proposal, all of it. We're done hiding. The next hour passed in a blur of negotiations and signatures. Marcus sat, in stunned silence as his wife systematically dismantled the corrupt empire he'd built. Victoria provided dates, names, records of every discriminatory action. Sarah outlined the pattern of harassment and retaliation across multiple companies. As the FBI agents led Marcus away for questioning, Eleanor remained behind. She looked smaller somehow, but also more authentic than I'd ever seen her. "I knew," she said quietly. "I always knew what he was doing. I just convinced myself it was necessary, that it was just business." "It was never just business," I replied. "It was about power, control, and the systematic destruction of women's careers." She nodded slowly. "How do I make it right?" "Start by telling the truth, all of it, then help us build something better." Later that evening, as the office emptied, I found Maya organizing files in the conference room. "What happens now?" she asked. I looked at the Seattle skyline, now clear after the morning's rain. "Now we rebuild. Not just here, but everywhere this kind of discrimination has taken root." My phone buzzed with messages from other companies' employees, reaching out after hearing about our stand. The movement was growing beyond Horizon, beyond Seattle, becoming something larger than any of us had imagined. "You know what Marcus never understood?" I said to Maya. "Real power isn't in tearing people down. It's in lifting them up, in creating spaces where talent can thrive, regardless of gender or background." She smiled, gesturing to a news alert on her phone. The story was breaking across major networks. "Corporate whistleblowers expose systematic discrimination ring." "Think it will make a difference?" she asked. "Look around," I replied, as Olivia entered with Sarah and Sam, carrying takeout dinner. Victoria Price followed, clutching more files. Eleanor Hamilton's testimony was scheduled for tomorrow. The Glass Ceiling Breakers network had grown to over 1,000 members. It already has. We gathered around the conference table, women from different backgrounds united by a common cause. Outside, the city lights began to twinkle on, each one a reminder that sometimes the greatest victories come not from destroying your enemies, but from transforming them into allies in the fight for justice. The morning of Eleanor Hamilton's public testimony dawned crisp and clear over Seattle. News vans lined the streets around the federal courthouse, their satellite dishes reaching toward the sky like mechanical flowers. Inside the building's imposing marble lobby, I watched the growing crowd of reporters and spectators, all eager to witness the unraveling of one of corporate America's most insidious discrimination schemes. "Quite a turnout," Sam Patel observed, adjusting her suit jacket. "Every major network is here, even outlets from New York and San Francisco." "They're not here for us," I replied, spotting Eleanor making her way through security. "They're here for her." The CEO's wife turning whistleblower? That's the kind of story that writes itself. Eleanor looked different today. Her usual power suit replaced by something more subdued, her makeup minimal, her demeanor more human than corporate. Victoria Price walked beside her, carrying a thick binder of evidence. Both women had spent the past 48 hours with federal prosecutors detailing years of systematic discrimination and fraud. "Ready?" I asked as they approached. Eleanor took a deep breath. "No, but it's time." The courtroom filled quickly. I sat between Sarah Winters and Maya, watching as more women filed in. Former employees from Horizon, Redwood Partners, and other companies where Marcus had implemented his toxic strategies. The Glass Ceiling Breakers network had mobilized, showing up in force to witness this moment. Eleanor's testimony began with the early days of her marriage to Marcus. She described watching him develop his methodology for identifying and eliminating successful women from corporate hierarchies. Her voice strengthened as she detailed the real estate manipulation schemes, the fraudulent contracts, the carefully constructed web of shell companies. "It wasn't just about money," she explained to the rapt courtroom. "It was about control, about maintaining a system where women could never truly succeed, never truly threaten the established power structure." The prosecutor held up a document. "And this email from your husband, could you explain its significance?" Eleanor leaned forward. That was his playbook. Step-by-step instructions for his HR directors on how to manufacture performance issues, how to isolate talented women, how to push them out while avoiding litigation. Victoria Price was called next. Her testimony was clinical, precise. Years of HR records revealing a pattern so clear it seemed impossible no one had stopped it sooner. "We created hostile environments," she admitted. "Manipulated performance. Reviews. Engineered situations where successful women would appear incompetent or unstable." She paused, her voice catching. "I helped destroy careers because I thought it was the only way to protect my own." During a brief recess, Olivia showed me her phone. The story was already trending nationwide. Glass ceiling breakers was the top hashtag on multiple platforms. Women across the country were sharing their own stories of corporate discrimination. "It's bigger than Marcus now," she said. "It's becoming a movement." Back in session, Sarah Winters took the stand. Her testimony focused on the technical aspects, the digital trail of Marcus's machinations, the careful documentation of every discriminatory action. Andre had helped her compile a devastating presentation, showing the pattern repeated across multiple companies. "This wasn't random," Sarah explained, pointing to a particularly dramatic graph. "This was systematic. Every company Marcus Hamilton touched showed the same pattern: successful women mysteriously failing, careers inexplicably derailing, all while male colleagues with inferior performance advanced." The afternoon brought a surprise witness, Dr. Benjamin Foster. The retired founder commanded immediate respect as he described how he had watched his company's culture change after Marcus arrived. "I built Horizon on principles of merit and equal opportunity," he testified. "To see those principles corrupted, to watch talented people pushed aside because of their gender, I knew I had to maintain oversight, gather evidence, wait for someone brave enough to take a stand." His eyes met mine briefly, and I remembered our first meeting, how he had shared those crucial documents that helped break the case open. The day's final witness was unexpected. Marcus Hamilton's former assistant from Redwood Partners. She described watching him perfect his techniques, targeting women who showed too much promise, too much independence. He called it corporate gardening, she revealed, pruning away threats to the established order. "I watched him destroy dozens of careers before I finally quit." As court adjourned, reporters swarmed the steps outside. Eleanor faced them calmly, Victoria and Sarah flanking her like guards. "Today is about truth," Eleanor began. "About acknowledging a system of discrimination so deeply embedded in corporate culture that it became invisible to those who benefited from it. But mostly, it's about saying, no more." Back at Horizon, I found Maya organizing a meeting space for tomorrow's Glass Ceiling Breakers network gathering. Women from across the country were flying in to share stories, strategies, and support. "We've got CEOs coming," she reported excitedly. "Board members, senior executives, all wanting to learn how to identify and eliminate these patterns in their own companies." "Good," I said, helping her arrange chairs, because this was never just about Marcus. It was about changing the system that created him. My phone buzzed. A message from Sam. The prosecutors were offering Marcus a deal in exchange for exposing similar schemes at other companies. His response would come tomorrow. That evening, I stood in my office, watching the sunset paint Seattle's skyline in shades of possibility. The door opened softly, and Dr. Foster entered. "Quite a day," he said, joining me at the window. "Though I suspect tomorrow will be even more significant." I turned to him. "Why didn't you stop Marcus sooner? You had the evidence." He smiled sadly. "Sometimes the only way to truly change a system is to let people see it at its worst, to let them choose to fight back." He patted my shoulder. "You gave them that choice, Jessica. You showed them it was possible to win. Outside, the last rays of sun caught the windows of our building, making them flame with light. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles, new opportunities to reshape corporate culture. But tonight, watching the city sparkle beneath the darkening sky, I felt something I hadn't experienced since this all began. Peace. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't in the fight itself, but in showing others it can be won. In proving that one person's stand for truth can become a movement for change. Marcus had called me worthless at that office party, never knowing he was sealing his own fate. Never understanding that true worth lies not in the power to destroy, but in the courage to rebuild. Morning light streamed through the windows of Horizon's largest conference room, now transformed into a command center for the glass ceiling breakers network. Women from across the corporate landscape filled every available space, their energy electric with purpose. Laptops covered the massive table, each screen displaying different aspects of what we'd uncovered: financial trails, email chains, personnel, records that painted a damning picture of systemic discrimination. Marcus's lawyers just responded, Sam announced, entering with her phone in hand. He's rejected the plea deal, wants to fight this in court. Sarah Winters looked up from her laptop. Of course he does. Men like Marcus don't know how to surrender power gracefully. Then we'll take it ungracefully, Eleanor Hamilton said, surprising everyone. She stood in the doorway, holding a thick manila envelope. I found these in our home safe last night. Contingency plans. Lists of other companies where he implemented his strategies. Names of co-conspirators. The room buzzed with renewed energy as Eleanor spread the documents across the table. Each page revealed new connections, new instances of corporate manipulation designed to hold women back. Look at this, Maya pointed to a particular document. Performance review templates, pre-written criticisms designed to seem objective while targeting specific female employees. Standard tactics, Victoria Price added, examining the papers. We used similar templates at Horizon, always focusing on subjective qualities like team dynamics or cultural fit, things that couldn't be easily challenged. A knock at the door interrupted our analysis. Andre entered, his expression grave. You need to see this. Marcus just went live on CNBC. The room fell silent as the television screen came to life. There was Marcus, perfectly groomed in an expensive suit, projecting an image of calm authority as he addressed the cameras. These allegations are nothing more than a coordinated attack by disgruntled former employees, he declared smoothly. Every personnel decision was made based on performance metrics and business necessities. The real story here is about corporate espionage and data theft. The interviewer leaned forward. Are you suggesting the evidence against you was obtained illegally? Marcus smiled, that same smug smile I remembered from countless meetings. I'm saying that certain individuals facing performance issues chose to retaliate by stealing confidential information and fabricating a narrative of discrimination. He's trying to flip the script, Olivia muttered. Make himself the victim. But Eleanor was already moving. Get me on that program, now. Sam grabbed her phone, making rapid calls. Within minutes, CNBC had agreed to a live remote interview from our office. As the technical team set up the equipment, Eleanor's calm demeanor never wavered. Are you sure about this? I asked quietly. Once you go public like this, there's no going back. She met my eyes steadily. I've spent years going back. It's time to go forward. The interview began with Marcus still on split screen, his confidence faltering slightly at the sight of his wife. Eleanor didn't waste time with pleasantries. Every word my husband just spoke is a lie, she stated clearly. And I can prove it. Not with stolen documents or fabricated evidence, but with records I personally maintained throughout our marriage. She held up a leather-bound journal. This is Marcus's own handwriting, detailing his strategy for identifying and eliminating successful women from corporate hierarchies, page by page, company by company, career by career. Marcus's face contorted. "Eleanor, you have no right." "I have every right," she cut him off. "I watched you destroy talented women's careers. I helped you hide the evidence, and now I'm going to help expose everything." The interviewer looked stunned. "Mrs. Hamilton, are you saying you were complicit in these activities?" "Yes," Eleanor replied simply. "And that's why I can testify to their reality. I'm not a disgruntled employee or a corporate rival. I'm the person who saw it all happen, who helped make it happen, and who finally couldn't live with that knowledge anymore." Marcus disappeared from the split screen abruptly. Moments later, my phone buzzed with a message from Sam. "His lawyers are calling. They want to talk." But Eleanor wasn't finished. She turned to face the camera directly. "To every woman who's ever been told she's too aggressive, too ambitious, too much, this is for you. We're not just exposing one man's actions. We're exposing a system that enables and rewards systematic discrimination." As the interview ended, applause erupted in the conference room. Women hugged, some crying, others laughing with relief. Victoria Price touched Eleanor's arm gently. "Thank you," she said softly, "for being brave enough to tell the truth." Eleanor shook her head. "I'm not brave. I'm just finally doing what's right." My phone buzzed again. Dr. Foster requesting an immediate meeting. In his office, he waited with Richard Walsh and 2 federal agents. "Marcus was seen entering the building 10 minutes ago," one agent reported. "Security footage shows him heading for the executive floor." I felt an odd sense of calm. "Let him come." "Jessica," Dr. Foster started, but I held up a hand. "No, it's time to finish this, once and for all." I returned to the conference room just as Marcus burst in, his perfect appearance now disheveled, his eyes wild. The room fell silent as he surveyed the gathered women, the displayed evidence, the remnants of Eleanor's interview still playing on the screen. "You think you've won?" he snarled, focusing on me. "You think exposing a few HR tricks changes anything? The system is bigger than you, bigger than all of you." I stepped forward, feeling the strength of every woman in that room behind me. "No, Marcus, the system is exactly what we're changing, and it starts right here, in the building you tried to steal, with the careers you tried to destroy." He laughed bitterly. "Still don't get it, do you? Women like you are worthless in this game. You'll never understand real power." "Real power?" Eleanor's voice rang out as she stood. "Real power isn't in destroying others to elevate yourself. It's in standing up for what's right, no matter the cost." The federal agents entered quietly, taking positions near the doors. Marcus didn't notice, too focused on his crumbling world. "You're under arrest, Mr. Hamilton," one agent announced, stepping forward, "for fraud, conspiracy, and multiple violations of federal employment law." As they led him away, his last desperate glare found me. I met his gaze steadily, remembering that office party where he'd called me worthless. How different things looked now, with the truth finally in the light. The room slowly came back to life, voices rising, plans forming, a movement growing stronger with each passing moment. Outside the windows, Seattle's skyline stood proud against the morning sky, its buildings reaching toward a future we were reshaping, one truth at a time. A week after Marcus Hamilton's arrest, the transformation of Horizon Digital Solutions was in full swing. The executive floor hummed with energy as women previously pushed aside returned to leadership positions. Through the glass walls of my office, I watched Sarah Winters directing the integration of her new technology platform, designed to ensure transparency in all corporate decisions. "The compensation reviews are complete," Olivia announced, entering with a stack of reports. Every woman affected by Marcus's policies has been offered reinstatement with back pay and damages. I picked up the top report, noting the substantial figures. How's the board taking it? Better than expected. Dr. Foster convinced them, this isn't just about justice, it's about reclaiming the talent we lost. Maya appeared in the doorway, practically bouncing with excitement. The Glass Ceiling Breakers website just went live. 5,000 members already, and it's only been up for an hour. The website had been her idea, a platform where women could share experiences, report discriminatory practices, and access legal resources. What started as a support network was rapidly evolving into a movement. There's more, she continued. 3 other companies have reached out. They want to implement our transparency protocols. They're calling it the Horizon Standard. A knock interrupted us. Eleanor Hamilton stood there, looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen her. Gone were the power suits and perfect makeup, replaced by a simple blazer and an authentic smile. Got a minute? She asked. There's something you should see. We followed her to the conference room where Victoria Price was setting up a presentation. The screen showed a familiar building, Redwood Partners' Seattle headquarters. The audit is complete, Eleanor explained. Every fraudulent transaction, every manipulated personnel decision, every instance of discrimination, all documented and ready for prosecution. Victoria clicked through slides showing the extent of Marcus's influence. The pattern goes back 15 years. We've identified over 200 cases of systematic career sabotage. But here's the interesting part, Eleanor continued. For every woman they pushed out, they created a vacuum. Projects delayed, clients lost, innovations missed. We've calculated the total cost to these companies in lost talent and opportunities. The number on the screen made me catch my breath. Billions of dollars in estimated losses, all because of one man's determination to maintain control. We're not just offering compensation, Eleanor said firmly. We're offering restoration. Every woman gets their position back, their projects back, their future back. A commotion in the lobby drew our attention. Through the glass walls, we could see a crowd gathering around the television. Breaking news banner, corporate discrimination ring. Exposed, multiple CEOs step down. It's happening everywhere, Maya whispered, reading the ticker. Chicago, Boston, Los Angeles. Companies are launching internal investigations. My phone buzzed with a message from Sam. Federal task force announced they want you to testify before Congress. They want all of us to testify, Eleanor corrected, reading over my shoulder. This isn't just about Horizon anymore. It's about changing the entire corporate landscape. Another knock at the door revealed Dr. Foster with Richard Walsh and several board members. Their expressions were unusually bright. We've just come from an emergency board meeting, Dr. Foster announced. In light of recent events, the board has decided to create a new position, Chief Ethics and Equality Officer. Richard Walsh stepped forward. We'd like you to take the role, Jessica, with full authority to implement systematic changes across all our operations. I looked around the room at the women who had fought this battle with me. Maya's determination, Olivia's unwavering support, Sarah's technical brilliance, Victoria's courage to admit her wrongs and make them right, Eleanor's transformation from enabler to advocate. On one condition, I said. This can't be just one position or one person. We need a complete restructuring. A council of women leaders ensuring these changes become permanent. Already approved, Dr. Foster smiled. In fact, we have something else to show you. He led us to the elevator and up to the roof. There, against the Seattle skyline, stood a newly installed sign. Horizon Digital Solutions, building a future of equal opportunity. The building Marcus tried to steal, Eleanor mused, now stands as a symbol of everything he fought against. Back in my office, I found a package on my desk. Inside was a framed photo of the Glass Ceiling Breakers Network's first meeting. Hundreds of women standing together, united in purpose. A note from Sarah was attached. "From worthless to priceless, look what we built together." My phone hadn't stopped buzzing all day. Messages from women across the country sharing their stories, seeking advice, offering support. The movement was growing beyond anything we could have imagined. Victoria knocked softly, entering with, "More files." The first wave of reinstatements is complete. 23 women back in leadership positions. And look at this. She handed me a report showing dramatic improvements in project completion rates, innovation metrics, and client satisfaction. "Turns out diversity isn't just about fairness," she said. "It's about excellence." The sun was setting over Seattle, painting the sky in brilliant colors. From my window, I could see other office buildings, knowing that behind each glass wall, more women were finding their voices, standing their ground, refusing to be pushed aside. Maya appeared one last time, her tablet displaying more breaking news. Marcus's trial date is set. The prosecution has witnesses from every company he ever touched. "And Eleanor?" I asked. "Testifying for the prosecution. She's determined to expose every aspect of his methodology." I touched the framed photo on my desk, remembering that moment at the office party when Marcus had tried to diminish me. How different things looked now, with the truth in full view and justice in motion. "You know what Marcus never understood?" I said to Maya. "True power isn't about keeping others down. It's about lifting everyone up." Outside, the city lights began to twinkle on, each one a reminder that change was possible, that justice could prevail, that no voice was truly worthless when joined with others in the cause of right. The future stretched before us, bright with possibility, not just for Horizon, but for every woman who had ever been told she was too much, too ambitious, too threatening to the status quo. We had proven that together, we were not just strong. We were unstoppable. The congressional hearing room buzzed with anticipation. Cameras flashed as I adjusted the microphone, acutely aware of the weight of responsibility resting on my shoulders. Behind me sat rows of women from the Glass Ceiling Breakers Network, each face reflecting determination and hope. "Ms. Chen," the committee chairwoman began, "please describe for us the systematic discrimination you uncovered at Horizon Digital Solutions and other corporations." I looked down at my prepared statement, then set it aside. This moment demanded raw truth, not polished rhetoric. "What we uncovered wasn't just about one company or one man," I began. "It was about a carefully constructed system designed to identify and eliminate women who showed too much promise, too much potential to threaten the existing power structure." The room fell silent as I detailed the methodology, the manipulated performance reviews, the orchestrated isolation, the calculated destruction of careers. On the giant screens behind the committee, graphs and charts illustrated the pattern across multiple companies. "But numbers don't tell the whole story," I continued. "Behind each statistic is a woman whose dreams were derailed, whose talents were suppressed, whose contributions were stolen." Sarah Winters took the stand next, her technical expertise lending weight to our testimony. She demonstrated how data analysis had revealed the discriminatory patterns, how technology could be used to prevent similar abuses in the future. "We've developed an AI-driven monitoring system," she explained, displaying her innovative platform. "It identifies potential discrimination in real time, flagging suspicious patterns in hiring, promotions, and performance reviews." Eleanor Hamilton's testimony proved particularly compelling. The wife of the architect of this discrimination system now stood as its most powerful critic. "I was complicit," she admitted, her voice steady. "I watched talented women being systematically pushed out, their careers destroyed, all in the name of maintaining what my husband called corporate stability. My silence made me part of the problem. Today, I choose to be part of the solution." During a break in the proceedings, Victoria Price showed me her tablet. Our story had sparked investigations at major corporations nationwide. 3 more. CEOs had resigned that morning alone, their discriminatory practices exposed by emboldened employees. The Horizon Standard is becoming industry protocol, she reported. Companies are scrambling to implement our transparency guidelines before their own issues come to light. Maya touched my arm, pointing to the live feed from Seattle. Outside Horizon's building, hundreds of women had gathered in solidarity. Similar scenes played out at corporate headquarters across the country. It's not just about corporate policy anymore, she said softly. It's become a cultural shift. Back in session, Dr. Foster testified about the positive impact of our reforms at Horizon. Since implementing the new leadership structure, he explained, we've seen a 40% increase in innovation metrics, a 60% improvement in employee retention, and record-breaking project success rates. The committee members leaned forward, particularly interested in the financial implications. And these improvements directly correlate with the return of previously marginalized employees? Precisely, Dr. Foster confirmed. By restoring talented women to their rightful positions and creating genuine equal opportunities, we've unlocked potential that was deliberately suppressed for years. Olivia presented our comprehensive reform proposal next. The Horizon Standard isn't just about preventing discrimination, she explained. It's about creating active pathways for advancement, ensuring transparency in all personnel decisions, and establishing genuine accountability at every level of corporate leadership. As the hearing concluded, the chairwoman made an unprecedented announcement. Based on today's testimony, this committee will be introducing legislation requiring all public companies to implement similar transparency and accountability measures. Outside the hearing room, reporters swarmed with questions. But my attention was caught by a group of young women, clearly recent graduates, waiting patiently to speak with me. We're starting our careers next month, one said, her eyes bright with determination. Your story showed us we don't have to accept discrimination as normal. We can fight back. That evening, at a small dinner gathering, Sam shared the latest legal developments. Marcus's trial starts next week. The prosecution has witnesses from every phase of his career. Former assistants, HR staff, dozens of women he targeted. And the corporate fraud charges? Eleanor asked. Rock solid. The real estate manipulation scheme alone carries significant prison time. Add the discrimination pattern, and he's facing decades. My phone buzzed with messages from other companies' employees seeking guidance on implementing the Horizon Standard. The movement had taken on a life of its own, growing beyond anything we could have anticipated. You know what's really changing? Victoria mused, watching the sunset over the Capitol. It's not just policy or procedure. It's the fundamental understanding of power. We're showing that true leadership isn't about suppressing others. It's about creating space for everyone to excel. Maya showed us the latest statistics from the Glass Ceiling Breakers website. Membership had surpassed 50,000. Women were sharing stories, offering support, creating networks of mutual empowerment. Every day, more people come forward, she reported. Not just victims of discrimination, but allies, advocates, change-makers. Dr. Foster raised his glass in a quiet toast. To the power of truth, he said, and to the courage of those who speak it. Looking around the table at these remarkable women, Sarah with her technical brilliance, Eleanor with her transformed perspective, Victoria with her determination to make amends, Olivia with her strategic mind, Maya with her unwavering optimism, I felt overwhelming gratitude. Marcus had called me worthless at that office party, never imagining his words would spark a revolution, never understanding that sometimes the greatest power lies not in tearing others down, but in building them up. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles, new opportunities to reshape corporate culture. But tonight, watching the lights of Washington twinkle against the darkening sky, I knew we had already won the most important victory. We had shown that one voice, joined with others in the cause of justice, could change not just a company, but an entire system. That courage, when combined with truth, could transform worthless into priceless. And that was worth everything we had fought for. 1 year later, I stood at the podium of Horizon Digital Solutions' transformed auditorium, addressing a room filled with faces bright with purpose and possibility. The annual Women in Leadership Conference had drawn participants from across the globe, each carrying stories of change and transformation. When we started this journey, I began, people said we were fighting an unwinnable battle. That corporate culture was too entrenched, power structures too established, discrimination too deeply rooted to change. I paused, letting my gaze sweep across the audience. They were wrong. The screens behind me displayed the impact statistics. 342 companies had adopted the Horizon standard. 87 discriminatory executives had been removed from power, and over 10,000 women had been restored to positions they'd been unfairly pushed from. Sarah Winters took the stage next, her presence commanding immediate attention. The technology we've developed doesn't just prevent discrimination, it actively promotes talent recognition regardless of gender. She demonstrated the latest version of her transparency platform, now used by companies worldwide. We're not just breaking glass ceilings anymore, we're building new structures entirely. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Seattle's skyline gleamed in the morning sun. The Horizon building, once a symbol of corrupt power, now stood as a beacon of progressive corporate culture. Every floor buzzed with diverse talent, innovation flowing freely in an atmosphere of genuine equality. Eleanor Hamilton approached the podium, her transformation complete from corporate wife to respected advocate. Marcus's sentencing hearing is tomorrow, she announced. The prosecution is recommending maximum penalties for both the discrimination and fraud charges. But the real victory isn't in his punishment. It's in the system we've built to ensure no one can ever replicate his schemes. The afternoon breakout sessions showcased success stories from companies across different industries. Victoria Price, now heading our corporate ethics division, led a powerful panel on transforming toxic workplace cultures. The key isn't just removing bad actors, she explained to a packed room. It's creating environments where everyone can thrive, where talent rises naturally without artificial barriers or systematic suppression. Maya, recently promoted to Director of Global Outreach, presented the latest initiatives from the Glass Ceiling Breakers Network. We're not just a support group anymore, she declared proudly. We're a global force for corporate reform. Our membership has crossed 300,000 with chapters in 27 countries. During the lunch break, Olivia showed me the latest report from our internal audit team. Employee satisfaction had hit record highs, innovation metrics had doubled, and our stock price reflected the market's confidence in our transformed culture. Remember when Marcus called you worthless? She mused, watching the bustling conference activity. Look at the worth you've created instead. Dr. Foster joined us, moving more slowly now, but his eyes still sharp with purpose. The board just approved the expansion of our mentorship program, he announced. We're partnering with universities to ensure the next generation of business leaders understands the value of genuine equality from day one. A commotion near the entrance drew our attention. The latest group of reinstated executives had arrived. Women from companies across the country who had been pushed out by discriminatory practices and were now reclaiming their careers. Each one represents dozens more, Sam noted, reviewing their files. The ripple effect is extraordinary. For every woman restored to leadership, we see positive changes throughout their organizations. The afternoon keynote speaker was a surprise. The daughter of the first woman Marcus had pushed out at Redwood Partners, now a successful CEO herself. My mother's career was destroyed by systematic discrimination, she told the rapt audience. But her experience taught me to fight back, to document everything, to never accept artificial limitations. Today, I run a company dedicated to ensuring no other woman faces what she faced. As the conference wound down, I found myself back in my office, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. The framed photo from our first glass ceiling breakers meeting still held pride of place on my wall, now joined by dozens more, showing the movement's growth and impact. Victoria entered with the latest data from our global implementation team. 10 more companies adopted the Horizon standard this week, she reported. The momentum keeps building. And the resistance? I asked, knowing change never comes without pushback. She smiled. Diminishing daily. Success is hard to argue with, and our results speak for themselves. Maya appeared with exciting news from the tech team. Sarah's algorithm just identified another discrimination pattern at a major tech firm. But here's the beautiful part. Their board immediately launched an investigation. The Horizon Standard protocols worked exactly as designed. A message from Eleanor popped up on my screen. Marcus's lawyers had made a final plea deal attempt. Too late. Tomorrow's sentencing would close that chapter definitively. But the story we'd written was so much bigger than his downfall. Dr. Foster knocked softly, entering with a small package. "Found this in the archives," he said, unwrapping an old building permit. "The original document for this building's construction. Thought you might appreciate the symbolism. How something intended as a monument to power became a beacon of change instead." Outside, the city lights began to twinkle on, each one representing countless stories of transformation and growth. The Glass Ceiling Breakers conference had achieved something remarkable. It had shown that change wasn't just possible. It was inevitable when people stood together for truth and justice. "You know what really defeated Marcus?" I said to my gathered colleagues. Not just exposing his schemes or revealing who owned the building. It was showing that his entire concept of worth was fundamentally flawed. Real worth isn't in pushing others down, it's in lifting everyone up. As we prepared to leave, Maya showed us one final update. The Glass Ceiling Breakers story had inspired a global movement. Tomorrow, similar conferences would begin in London, Tokyo, and Sydney. The ripples of change we'd started were becoming waves of transformation. The next generation of business leaders would inherit a different corporate world, one where talent transcended gender, where success meant creating opportunities rather than limiting them, where worth was measured by impact rather than power. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.